Hello, and welcome back to Parley, the show where you folks support the other stuff I make by paying me monthly to talk about the topic of your choice in these here kind of custom podcast style videos. Today, we have a parlay from, so it's from BlackSheep, and this is like a math is a scam parlay. They just said low effort parlay request, and then there's this image. That's it. That's the parlay. So this is a very high effort parlay, of course, bringing exposure to the well-known fact that math is a scam. It turns out math has been fake this whole time. Man, I use math all the time. They really had me going. I'll read the post. Stop doing math. Numbers were not supposed to be given names. Years of counting, yet no real-world use found for going higher than your fingers. Wanted to go higher anyway? For a laugh? We had a tool for that. It was called guessing. Yes, please give me zero of something. Please give me infinity of it. Statements dreamed up by the utterly deranged. Look what mathematicians have been demanding your respect for all this time with the calculators and abacus we built for them. This is real math done by real mathematicians. And then we have... well, I don't know what these are because math is a scam. Math is not real. Hello, I would like apples, please. They have played us for absolute fools, the post concludes. Now, of course, when you give me a parlay like this, it's low effort for you. Maybe. I actually think this is an excellent parlay. These aren't hard for me either, because I can just do whatever the heck I want, right? There are three things we're going to do. First of all, we're going to over-explain, because we have to. Unfortunately, this is the type of post on the internet that, it's always a little scary, not being sure, wait, but we all know this isn't serious, right? So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. I actually think it's pretty interesting, these types of posts. The very evil, sinister, but kind of interesting, psychological mechanisms they work on. Then, of course, we're going to go point by point. We're going to discuss. We'll have a little, round table about the points that this graphic presents. And then we're gonna get a little serious. We're gonna talk about, dude, is math a scam? It's totally not, but we're gonna talk about it. Does that sound fun? That's what we're doing. You don't get to say because you submitted this parlay request. Let's go. Okay. Yes, this post is a joke about really radical conspiracy theory kind of posts. I'm not really sure what to call them. But yeah, and a lot of these claims hit the big trends that those posts tend to evoke. The excessive use of caps, the weird use of capitalization, turning things into proper nouns that really aren't, for the purpose of getting people to think of it as a single entity they can direct their anger at. People are frustrated. Most people don't have a very directed thing they're frustrated at. These kinds of posts, these types of political trends is what they often are their plan is to take advantage of that, to kind of galvanize people's frustration and basically instruct them on where the person making the post would like them to direct it. It is like mind control for unused mental resources. That's how I like to think of it. There's a thing where people will sell their computers processing power during off hours for people mining Bitcoin or whatever, to make a little money on the side. To me, this is like that, but for thoughts in general, for politics, basically. Of course, this one is kind of a joke about it, a bit of a parody, like the conspiracy theory parody movement about birds being fake, like birds not existing. Or there's this is actually a real conspiracy, embarrassingly, about Australia not being real. And people are actually in South America when they think they're in Australia. Anyway, we could do this all day. I'm only an initiate to the joys of laughing at stupid conspiracy theories. But it's important to understand why they're happening. Yes, it's very funny. Yes, these people are very stupid. But a lot of the time it's because they don't really think about things as being for reasons in the first place. And to them, it's kind of liberating to see their frustration, their suspicion get directed somewhere. It's important to remember that these people are not evil. They're just worse off than they would be if only they understood better. It's unfortunate that they don't understand how stupid and often harmful these things are. They too would be better off if only they understood that. They don't know how much they're acting not in their best interest. It'd be great if we could all understand. We shouldn't be happy that people are forced to oppose each other. But yes, it is very funny, the result of that situation. I'm totally with you. Like, that is, however, this is very funny. Yeah, so the proper noun thing, the people might not have the same interests as you, but if you just kind of point at something and don't explain it, they might just kind of assume that you and they agree, and then you can take advantage of that for some political hatred. I don't know. Yeah, the excessive use of caps, that's a fun one. The real, done by real, the 2 points. Making statements that it's hard to disprove quickly. We'll kind of get into that more in the second part. But like, zero is obviously a very useful concept, but demonstrating how is easy but takes like a bit of time, I think, unless you can come up with a quippy way to do it. These types of posts often come up with a quippy way to make it seem like, oh, well, you can't quickly respond and say why that's useful, so like it isn't, which I always find just sort of funny. I don't know. But yeah, in summary, it's important to me because I find this topic morbidly fascinating, but it's like quite a big problem in our culture right now. And I think it's important to laugh at it, but also understand it. And you made this parlay open-ended, so I get to decide it's about that. To make sure to keep in mind that a lot of the frustration that leads to this is a joke about that type of post comes from the fact that, there's just a bunch of mental static, I guess, in our media nowadays. And it's very difficult to know where to direct your attention. It's being pulled in a lot of different directions for a lot of people. And many people feel very insecure without some kind of anchor to truth. I think what happens is that some people realize how much they're being manipulated, or like how of a soup news is. A lot of news is just pointless, like it's unactionable, outrage merchant work that doesn't really help anyone. But sometimes when people realize that, I think they have this feeling like they're not ready to give up on truth, which is what you kind of should do. It's not like there aren't things that are real, but it's important to not be obsessed with knowing which thing is right. You should focus more on what is practical, what does good, what respects your fellow people, not focusing on like, is it this or this? Which side am I supposed to take? But most people, I don't think, are ready to do that, to give up on that basic human thing, even though that is the only real solution, in my opinion. So it's tempting, it's fulfilling, very relaxing in a way, to turn to a conspiracy theory, anything, so that there can be a truth that they can still hold on to, which I think is a very interesting, terrible, disastrous part of human psychology. I just think that's very interesting. I'm not going to claim that my explanation is like the right or best one. Remember, there really is no such thing as far as I'm concerned. But that's one way to think about it. And I do think it's very helpful, important, responsible nowadays to go onto, especially the internet, with it in mind why people would do this. It's not because they're evil or merely less intelligent or something. It's not quite that simple. This is something that's in all of us that we all have our own ways of responding to. So I just want people to try to understand each other. That's all. Yes, it is very frustrating. You can hear in my explanation a little bit of immaturity, an embarrassing side of me that, yeah, like it does make me angry sometimes to see people it's so easy to just not bother thinking about it and instead latch onto this thing that harms other people. That does make me very angry, but it's important to do our best to try to understand while admitting that, yes, honestly, it does just piss me off. And now let's laugh at this silly post. Let's go point by point, shall we? The first one, starting out strong, numbers. We're not supposed to be given names. Already, questions swarm in my mind. What does supposed to mean? who, what are there was something that things were supposed to be? No, that's not real. No, there is no supposed to. No, nothing. No, the universe doesn't care about us pathetic humans. Um, and given names, I feel like of all the words, put this away. Tangent. I feel like of all the words, the number words, like 1 through 10, let's say, we'll get to the next point in a second about that. 1 through 10, these numbers, you know what I'm trying to say, are like among the most useful words. That could not be less true. Numbers are among the things that most deserve to be given names. And to be fair, like a lot of the large numbers, maybe those words don't have like as relatively much use in everyday life or whatever. Sure, but they're also not taking up that much space. Most number words in English are procedural, 23, 24, 25, 1360, it's not like a new word, it's just using a template. I don't know, and I'm quite confident that almost all languages do it that way. So it doesn't. Anyway, I just think this one is like the biggest. Like they really. If anything, you would say they really should be given names. It seems like they're pulling their weight there. I don't know. Years of counting, yet no real world use found for going higher than your fingers. Now, this one is true, of course. There's no need to have words like 11. You don't need 11 of a thing. You can just have 10 twice, I guess. You can't even see the number 10 because that's not real. And so that's why it's back here. A mere shadow on my face is the number 10 because math is not real. I mean, unfortunately, I can relate to you, my dear viewer, listener. Yeah, I use math all the time. Little did I know it didn't exist. I mean, we've been played for absolute fools. This whole time, I was out here using numbers, accomplishing things in daily life, constantly gaining value out of using numbers, and it was all a lie somehow. I don't even know what to say. Wow. I'm a real fool. I'm real silly. Wanted to go higher anyway for a laugh. We had a tool for that. It was called guessing. Estimating is really useful on a serious note in a way that I think people don't give it credit for. I said before, I think that a lot of our world's problems, many of the worst parts of my videos and discussion are that we humans have a need to have the right answer, to seem like an authority, to be confident in our thing, to socially perform, I think is a lot of it. There's a lot of causes, but there's an obsession with truth or like trivia, when much of the time it doesn't actually matter. I'll give you the example that sticks in my mind that really caused a shift in the way I approached discussing builds. A while ago, when I was doing the Joey Zero Weekly Warframe show, I was talking about Nova, and I talked about how Nova in Warframe she's got a very high energy pool. And this is useful for, in Warframe, there's a pretty interesting buildcraft tool that lets you consume your energy, or like mana, or however you might want to translate it. The resource you use to use your abilities, you can consume it to have it act like health. And that can be really useful on Nova for a few reasons. And I said that Nova has the highest energy pool of any frame. Now, it's not relevant in any way for any purpose that Nova has the highest rather than like just a high energy pool. It's not relevant for me to have said it that way. If only I'd known better and just not said it that way, I could have just said she has a high energy pool. But other people, they have to say that, wait, even though it would never ever matter even a tiny bit, we have to make sure that everyone knows that that's actually wrong in a way that doesn't exist, but technically there are other warframes with a higher energy pool. And it was foolish of me to bother claiming that thing, but it was a habit. I didn't care about saying this Warframe is the most of this. I don't care about that factoid. I'm just in the habit from being on the internet of saying this is like the most whatever, because people do that. You've all gotten my head, not all of you, hopefully. And so I said it that way. But the fact that other people feel like that matters, to some people, they have this idea like, oh no, but that's misinformation, which would never negatively affect anyone. But it's, good not to get things wrong on purpose, which of course I didn't. I want to not get things wrong, but it's really better to just omit the fact. It's not actually important. Like, it doesn't matter. I think that people are way too afraid to just get it close enough. If there's only like a 1% difference or whatever, in day-to-day life, it usually doesn't matter. But people have a need to have it be like the exact correct thing. And that is not useful. It is usually anti-useful. And so I think personally that as much as like, haha, needing to go higher than 10 means you should guesstimate, that's ridiculous. At the same time, I do think that modern human society could use to detox from factoids a bit, and maybe just be okay with something that, here's why I think it's this way. It doesn't actually really matter, especially in games, like whether that is exactly true or not. That really does not matter. It's the broad strokes, the idea behind the thing. That's what's important. Dramatically more useful too, but people don't seem to be able to accept that sometimes, which I think is bad. But what are you going to do? I'm not going to stamp my foot and act like I don't know that. I'm going to try to teach myself to not speak that way. That's come up a lot in my career, and that was one example. The zero and infinity thing. Okay, so what I want to talk about with this one was, that point earlier, like, I feel like you can demonstrate that. How are the concepts of zero and infinity useful? Well, so of course, like saying that you want not one of a thing, like I want zero of a thing. Like that, I mean, you can just say I don't want the thing, I guess, but like the concept of zero is obviously very useful. And the concept of infinity is theoretically, like syntactically, quite useful in human discussion, suggesting that it's not about the amount of a thing that matters by using infinity. Even if you had an infinite amount of this, it wouldn't be enough, or it wouldn't do the thing. No amount of this would be enough. And expressing that with infinity is, I believe, quite useful. But without an example or like a time in everyday life or simulating reality where you like force the human being to not express the concept of infinity, you can't really do that easily. And so I think for a lot of people, it's like there isn't any obvious way to like concisely disprove this point, but it is fairly obviously nonsense. Like, it is very useful to be able to represent zero and infinity. It's just not that easy to demonstrate, maybe. You see what I'm trying to say? Personally, I've found that this is a really common trend in these kinds of posts. One of the ones I'm most interested in, how it's important to note when someone says something pithy and memeable and like phrasey and it looks like a good quote, and then somebody explains at length, correctly often, why that's not true. Most people don't think about it that much. Don't think deeply logically about some random thing they're reading. Most people come away from that exchange thinking that the short pithy thing was more right. There's a sort of, I guess, tribalism thing or personal security or performative thing in a lot of people that causes them to think that the shorter thing was more true, almost merely because it was shorter, or because there was like explaining seems like, I guess, manipulation to some people. I feel like people are really afraid of reasoning. Reasoning means you need to take responsibility for the things you're saying. And most people, well, it's a lot of responsibility. So I find it a deeply interesting trend that these types of posts or trends will often claim things like this, where it's surprisingly difficult to rebuke easily, and people often fall into the trap of actually boosting the post by trying to give like a straightforward explanation of why it's wrong. That does not work, frustratingly. I'm not sure that it means you shouldn't say anything. Personally, I think one of the gimmicks of social media is that if you give people a public place to talk and they say a thing, you're kind of trapped as the creator. If you don't respond at all, that is the same as you promoting that thing. Many people don't remember that random person who commented. They remember you, your stream, and that comment, but they don't remember that person's name. It's very similar to if you said it. So you can't really say nothing. And it's not practical to just instantaneously ban every person that says this. And it's not practical to address the person saying it. You kind of can't do anything. I think the best case scenario is somewhere like Twitter or YouTube, where you can remove that one comment without any further action. That is maybe the best way to do it, where if you're responsible about that, you can remove things that there isn't any easy way to diffuse their effect and prevent people from kind of hijacking the posts you made for some other purpose. I think that is the only solution. Not to say the best makes it sound like it's a good solution, which I don't think it is. But this is a challenging thing about social media because of the principle of this thing, where you can say kind of a pithy thing and it seems to ring true for people, and there's nothing you can really do to stop that thing easily. You kind of have to just delete it. One thing I like about my job and about Twitch, and one reason why I don't put chat on my stream archives, is because if somebody says a thing in a stream, I have no escape from them having said that. That is now pasted to my video, and I can't take it away. That's me now. Now I said that, basically. You might be thinking people totally don't think of it that way. Yeah, not consciously, but this is a problem. I really do think so. I guess I'm getting a bit more into talking about why it's this type of thing is a problem, rather than just laughing at this silly thing. Capitalizing the words mathematicians and respect, that made me laugh. Math is capitalized, not for nothing. The idea that these posts are often kind of self-defeating to maybe a lot of us reading it, where it's like, looking at this at a glance makes my reaction, if somebody were to say this seriously, my reaction would be, oh, you just don't understand math. Like, you're just not that smart, which is fine, but that's not a reason to claim that the thing does. You then turn around and say, oh, but that's just not real. I can just say that people who do things I don't get are idiots or something. And it's like, no, you might just not understand. Like, my biggest build advice move, as always, is nobody knows all builds. You don't really ever know if something is like the build or the best build, and none of that is actually ever useful anyway. It's much better to just say, I think this is good and this is why, but people just can't do it. People are addicted to truth. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Now, to get to the real stuff. Math, though, what did we gain by introducing math into our society as a species? Now, you might be saying, hold on, Zandy, this was all a joke. Don't drink the Jamba Juice. Like, what? Hold on. What are you trying to say here? But what I'm referring to really is making a solution to a problem we made, and overcomplicating things that way. I often think about what we as humans gained from making this kind of bad society that we all live in, this kind of malfunctioning, not really tailored to be good for humans society. The goals in the culture that I grew up in, at least, won't make me or the other people in this culture happy. They don't make the other people in this culture happy. They're not happy, statistically. So apparently, the America, basically, but I think pretty much all human societies are not machines that make humans happy. And why would you design a thing for humans for a reason other than that? There isn't any at all, actually, goal for our lives. There is no stated goal. So in my mind, it just seems a bit silly if the goal isn't like, how will you become happy doing this thing? I'm going to explain what I mean by that as concisely as possible, but I bet a lot of you innately resonate with this thing. I've talked to some people that don't, and here's how I often try to explain it. I think a lot of people have this problem when they retire or if they get a lot of money. There's those interesting statistics about people who win the lottery not being very happy usually. And it's because their goal has not yet ever been to live a happy life. They didn't really do any work to lay the framework for happiness. What hobbies will you enjoy doing? What entertainment will you consume? What will you do to manage your mental state and feel fulfilled when you don't have to work, so that you're not forced to do a job you don't want to? Maybe you'll do a job you do want to. That would be awesome, ideally, but it's hard to do that. But if not, what are you going to do that feels like a suitable ground project for moving yourself forward? We humans, we become happy in a nutshell when we advance or continue. And to stagnate is depression, anxiety, and death. Something not to be taken lightly. That is how to live a happy life as a human, to make sure that there is no stagnation as much as possible, and to provide some level of continuation in your life somewhere. Fortunately, I think this is easy to do so long as you give it your attention, as long as you bother to introduce those things into your life. There's any number of ways, the internet particularly helps, to introduce some kind of progression. I have described MMORPGs before, like World of Warcraft, as therapy for the lack of fulfillment in everyday life. Seeing that leveling bar go up, gathering the resource, just killing a random enemy. If you've played an MMORPG before, you could probably relate to this feeling. How many times do you just kill a random enemy because, like, animations go burr and then you see a little number when they die? It is oddly therapeutic. You might say addictive. Perhaps so. A lot of therapies are addictive. I'm just going to leave it at that. I think there is something that is, I'm maybe going to say healing. Maybe that sounds weird, but about that process. And so I feel like when people don't incorporate that into their life, I'm going to really oversimplify in a way that's going to sound silly. If people don't play video games nowadays, I sort of don't see what the point is in them living in human society. I feel like there isn't anything that we made that you couldn't essentially make before we had all this stuff, except for like multimedia entertainment, not literally only video games. Obviously, that's the pithy short version. But truthfully, I feel like people who have a lot of time that do not play video games, I don't understand. Like, you are making a mistake. Like, there are video games for everyone. You can't possibly be, like, incompatible with all video games. There is every kind of video game. No matter how uncomfortable you are with controls or graphics or whatever, there is a video game made for you. Again, maybe not as many. Obviously, that's a little reductive, but you get the point of the example, I think. Or it would be like if someone said they don't watch any shows. Like, surely there's one that you'd really like. I think a lot of media nowadays, a lot of television, is garbage with no worth. Like, just completely worthless. Mental static that will fry your brain and cause you to live a less happy life. Sure, but there's so much that I think is good, that is beautiful, that you can go on otherworldly adventures with. Why would you not do that? Like, what? I'm honestly arrested when I meet people who don't do those things. I think there is no point to living your life unless I'm not saying it's all about consuming media, but like going for a walk, for example, and I don't know, personally, my experience has been that a lot of those people don't do that either. They don't really do anything. And it's like, you can't possibly not like all of these things. There's something wrong here. And I think it's because people weren't encouraged to go find that entertainment in their life. The flip side of this, basically where I'm going with this is, that whole entertainment topic, what entertainment is worthwhile, what is the purpose, like day to day in practice, what do you do to enjoy a human life? I've got a lot to say about that, but it's a pretty different topic. I just wanted to summarize it here. So I hope you know, like, I'm oversimplifying to make a point, okay? It's not like your life is pointless if you don't play video games. I mean, I actually kind of do think that, but it's an oversimplification. I hope what I said generally makes sense. Please don't nitpick every word in there. That was a high-level example. The point is, human society has created a lot of bad things, a lot of jobs that aren't fun or fulfilling, a lot that are, but a lot that aren't. a lot of complicated, entangled legal systems and day-to-day concerns that I don't think make anyone's life better directly. They're just things that we, maybe correctly, maybe not, decided we as a society needed in order to have some usually pretty unclear benefit. There's some product that math is going to create. In my mind, the explanation that it would be pointless to provide, but like the answer to why math is worthwhile, you could demonstrate any number of ways. Like it would be way more efficient to, we can agree that being able to order things on delivery is efficient in some way. It can lead to a better world. You wouldn't be able to get certain goods in a stable and consistent a way. Food would be less fresh and healthy and available, etc., without these transportation systems. So I'm not just talking about like Amazon delivery or whatever. We're talking about even things like stocking grocery stores. This is better in some way. It's not a pure benefit, but there are clearly benefits, we can agree. And that is made better by efficient delivery. And if you could solve like things like the traveling salesman problem, some details about it being checkable versus solvable, you can go look up it's called like the N equals NP problem. There's a bounty for it in money. I think you get like $1 million if you figure this out. It's meant to, you're supposed to prove if instances of the traveling salesman problem can be solved, if they can be checked. I'm not an expert on this subject. You can go look it up. Probably some of you already know what I mean. But anyway, that complicated math thing that I don't understand, but the benefit is so obvious. Like if we had that, literally like all humans would just get more things. Like there is a more efficient way to deliver all these goods that are being delivered and make the human society's arteries run that is more efficient. Imagine if I said every process your body performs, you could just speed that up for no cost. Like if anything, it would actually be more energy efficient and everything would just flow better. You'd heal faster. You'd have more energy. You'd be healthier. You'd live longer. You'd digest food better. Everything would be better. And it would cost less energy. That's what this is. We're having trucks drive around, not do the thing, and that could be optimized. It's blatantly obvious what a ridiculously huge benefit that would be if it was solved. So there's no question that math is very useful. Like, the post is a joke, of course, but like, that thing has a clear benefit. All of that being said, you can't help but feel like if you took that many steps further, like what if we optimized everything about human society? We'd have to reduce everyone to robots, of course, so they wouldn't react unaccordingly to making the utopia/dystopia that this would result in function. But you have to think if you could build a civilization from the ground up starting now, which you can't, but if you could, surely some of these things are kind of a waste. Like some things, not math, but some things are are not actually worth having. Like they don't really make people's lives better. Some things that kind of just emerged, but now that they exist, they're just kind of a suck on human civilization. In many cases, a topic that is, we're getting to the edge of this Parley subject. I think this is outside the scope of this Parley now, but that really interests me, so I want to express it at the end, is this idea that many inefficiencies in human life came about because of the order that things showed up in. This is really common in video games too, where a mechanical change to a game would unarguably improve the game, but the problem is that you need to compromise what the player thinks about the game and what is actually true of the game. You have to care about both. If you make a game that's actually good but nobody knows, well, and if you make a game that addresses the player's concerns but isn't actually good, well, what about the people who aren't constantly listening to the metagame discussion all the time or whatever? Or just don't know that, or understand the game better, and then suddenly the game is less appropriate for those people. Doing either is clearly ridiculous. You need to balance them somehow. And I think the trick is the core should be how the game actually works. You just need to make it appear how it actually is to the players. The problem, of course, is that sometimes if you make changes in a certain order, the players latch onto something that really isn't true of the game, but players just come to think it is. And then changes kind of have to be in response to that in some way, leading to if not making some changes impossible, like a much less efficient chain of action to get to the state you actually want the game to be in, if that makes sense. And I think it's interesting how if you froze time and simulated reality again, parallel reality over here, and you knew where you wanted to get the game, that problem would actually just vanish. It's only there because of the passage of time, like the order that things happened in. I think that's really interesting. It might not ever matter, but if there's ever like a world-ending apocalypse, for example, you could probably make a better society very easily if you hit just the right moment in history. You probably wouldn't. Like, people probably would fail. People don't really think about this that much, I don't think, because they think it's pointless and academic, when in fact, I don't know, man, like it might actually happen in our lifetimes. Just saying. And two, I think a lot of people don't have the good intentions. You need somebody who is, I don't know, pure of heart or whatever to be making the society and not be corrupt or something. But logistically speaking, I don't believe it would be that hard in theory to make a society that was very good, that was a lot better with really no drawbacks, if you just didn't have to make it as it ran. You know, you could sort of stop and then reorganize everything and then hit play again. That would solve most, I almost think all of these problems. But history exists, and so shit. That's the parlay. So yeah, man. In summary, make sure an apple a day keeps the math away. Stay frosty out there.